I'm about to take the train from Amsterdam to Frankfurt, Germany, and in Frankfurt I will be interviewing Howard Martin. Howard is actually not a German, he's an American guy. He's one of the leaders of the Heartmath Institute, and Heartmath has been doing research to the intelligence of the heart for more than 25 years now. Really curious to today, looking forward to this very much. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming.
No, it's my pleasure. I was wondering, because I think you've been traveling the world for over 25 years now, telling the Heartmath story. Do you ever get tired of it? What keeps you running?
What keeps me running is that, I feel a strong mission to do what I can as one man to help create a more heart-connected world. And yeah, physically sometimes I get tired, but my spirit never gets tired. And I enjoy having the opportunity, really, to be with people, to meet new people, and to share what I can to make their lives better.
And where was your mission to create a more heart-connected world born? Where does it come from?
Well, I think it comes from a long time. I've been doing this a long time. It comes from, first of all, working on myself to be a better person. And as I grew, I realized that growing was good, but sharing had to be there too. If you had anything worth sharing, that you should, and that you should try to use whatever you learn to make life better for other people. And so it was born really from the development of my own heart, which developed another desire born from care, to see what I could do to make things easier for others.
So you always had that urge?
Well, not always. We all go through our time periods and transitions. Early part of my life, probably up till the time I was a little older than you, I was a rock musician.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a very narcissistic existence,
Oh, I didn't know this.
Yeah, that's what I did. And so, it's about you. You can play games and rationalize that it isn't, but at the end of the day, it's about you. And so in those days, I'm sure I had an interest in the well-being of others, but certainly not to the degree that is manifested today.
So what created the transformation in your life then?
What created the transformation? Well, again, it was first of all an interest, in my early life. It became trendy in those days to get involved in some personal growth process of some kind. So I'd read the books and read the stories and be inspired by them, and it became, a strong interest. Of how can I learn more? How can I grow more? How can I expand my own consciousness? How can I learn to better, regulate my own emotions? And those things became, an interest that I had. And so in the pursuit of that, after a while, it takes hold. It begins to grow in you, and then it begins to be the stronger momentum in your life, rather than something that you just do on the side, right? So it takes time.
It was a gradual process.
Very gradual, yeah. Because Heartmath, I've been a part of it since its inception now almost 30 years ago, but there was a lot of time before that, right, that even led to Heartmath. So when I add it all up, it's like 40 or 50 years, of this. So some of the questions that I get like this in interviews are hard to answer, because going back that far, it's difficult to even remember, how you were as a person.
You talk a lot about heart intelligence. What is that? What is it?
We think about the qualities associated with heart that relate to leadership, really, like more courage, more dignity, more honor, honesty, certainly care and compassion. To me, those are the kind of qualities that people want in their leaders. They want to be led by people that manifest those things. So heart intelligence is both physiological and psychological. It really is about the manifestation of intuition in a practical sense, so that the qualities of heart can be shared, in ordinary living.
Why are those aspects not in the mind but in the heart?
Well, I think they all relate. Mind and heart, they all work together. I think through our research we've shown that the heart, even at the physical level, is more than just a cardiovascular organ. It's an information processing center in our bodies. It sends information to the brain and to the rest of the system, and that information is critical information. Brain function is critically dependent upon signals coming from the heart. So you can tie the physical heart and what it actually does to the metaphor of heart, of those type of qualities. My experience is that heart intelligence gives birth to those type of emotional qualities. You know, where does appreciation come from? Where does care come from? You know, yeah, it manifests in the mind, but what's the impetus? Where does it start? You know, to me, it starts at heart.
And how do you then connect with the heart?
Well, that requires wanting to, for starters, you know, and learning to respect it. Not to see it as something just soft or sentimental or weak. That's where our science comes in. It helps to build that bridge to make heart not just philosophical, but empirical. And then once you have that respect, you know, to start to learn to sort of listen to that part of yourself. You know, we all have had times in our life when we've had the sort of the whisper of our own intuition about, I should be doing this, I shouldn't be doing that, you know, and it's like you learn to become more sensitive to that and to that type of inner information that you're receiving. And as you act on that, over time you start to see that, hey, acting on that turned out to be good. You know, not acting on it turned out to be not so good, you know. So you build the trust as you go, step by step. And respect for the heart is first, listening to it is second, and then demonstrating it is third, you know, and seeing what you can do to put out heart, not just to listen to it, but how do you give it? And then getting the feedback from life about what happens in life as you give it.
And in the work that you do, the word heart coherence is at the center of it, right?
Yeah.
Can you explain a bit about this? What does it mean?
Yeah, heart coherence is a physiological and psychological state, a very measurable one. At the physiological level, what happens is that all the major body systems begin to synchronize to an organized rhythmic beating pattern of the heart. So the heart acts as sort of a master controller, and all the systems sort of sync up with it. That means respiration, digestion, immune system response, hormonal response, brain function, they all sync up. And when you're in that state, you're in a high performance state. It's calm and balanced, but it's not a sleepy time state. It's very active, it's very engaged. That's why it can be taught in the military or to athletes. You know, it's because it's an active state where you're much more aware of your environment. You're more sensitive to what's going on around you and in you in that state. And it's healthy. It's a very healthy state when you're in the state of higher coherence. The psychological part is interesting. Coherence is naturally triggered when we are experiencing regenerative, uplifting emotions, like the ones associated with heart. When we're with someone we love, or when we're playing with a child or a grandchild, or a pet, you know, we would naturally go more towards coherence. When we consciously do it, we make the effort and intention to, now I'm going to shift emotion, now I'm going to be more appreciative rather than complaining, where I'm going to be more caring and understanding rather than judgmental. It creates another level of coherence. Once you're in that state, what happens is cool. Those type of emotions start to flow. You know? So the appreciation that you had to push to get now becomes easy. You know? And so there's a flowing state of regenerative emotions accompanied by a highly efficient physiological state. And so it's really a high performance state on multiple levels. And we train people how to become more coherent, and we measure it. And we're able to show internal coherence and what it looks like. And it's part of what we bring to everything that we do.
And when you're more coherent, you're more healthy, more happy, you have more clarity?
Yep.
Those type of...
It certainly affects brain function. You will make better decisions in high coherence. You know? Do we make good decisions when we're angry and frustrated? No, we don't.
Definitely not.
So you know, it does lead to another level of refined discrimination. We can see into things with more nuance, and therefore we're able to understand them better and make better decisions. You know, so yeah, it's healthy. It's you feel better, happier. You also make better decisions, and I think just as importantly, it creates more connection with others. You're able to really connect with other people in a different way.
Because in a way you're connecting with yourself first, so that you can.
Well said. Yeah. So if you're a leader, you want to connect with people. I think leadership from a distance doesn't work very well today. You know, it needs to be a connected leadership. People are going to follow you if they feel that you are a person that cares about them and their well-being. I believe that people need to know that you care about them before they care about knowing what you have to say. You know?
Yeah.
So if you can create that caring connection with the people that you are leading, it leads to loyalty, it leads to inspiration, it leads to higher productivity because they want to do what the leader is saying, as opposed to doing it because they have to. Yeah.
If you make this practical, what would you advise to leaders to start doing to become more coherent?
Well, here's one of the things that I do. I always try to have demonstrated more appreciation than I have criticism. If I've appreciated someone I'm leading for the things that I've seen them do, and honor them for that, then if there becomes a time when I have to say, we need to talk about this because there's some changes that I'm needing to ask you to make, or you didn't do as well at that and I need you to do better. You're better than that. If I've already got a lot of appreciation in the bank account, in the relationship bank account, it's much easier for that because they know that I appreciate them. They know that I care. They know that I'm not just being critical.
And it's authentic as well.
Authentic, yeah. And I think there's a balance in all of it. I mean, I can care about a lot of things, and I do care about my people. But there's a line you can cross as well to where that care can affect how you take action. We call that overcare. You know, when you're over caring about something. You know, let's say you know you need to terminate an employee, and it's the best thing for what needs to happen in the business. But you also know about their personal life and they're having struggles. Well, that overcare can prevent you from doing what's necessary. So there's a higher care you can go to where you're seeing it from a larger angle view. But I can't emphasize enough the need for leaders to care, and especially to have compassion. Compassion is just really recognizing where someone else may be. The natural tendency is judgment. To judge them. But when you lead with compassion, it opens the door for all kinds of communication and understanding. So appreciation in the bank account, care without overcare, and really trying to put compassion in front of your actions are three things that I would suggest to leaders.
How can you, as a leader or entrepreneur, how can you make your organization or your team working more in flow together? How can you create a coherent team? Is that possible?
Well, we start all of our meetings practicing a Heartmath technique. We try to set the tone or the energetic field environment of that meeting up front with heart. We address conflict quickly. We try to make sure that things don't stay in the undercurrent of things. So, you know, when things aren't addressed, you know, closer to the moment, they stack up, and they develop what we call histories. And so people develop these histories with each other. You know, we also try to encourage each other to begin to see each other from the changes we've made. Not from who we used to be or what we did last year or last month, but you know, try to see the person more of how they are now. You know, so it eliminates some of the separation and all of that. Another thing that's important for me is that I never want to see myself as better than the other people. I want to see myself as equal to what the others do. So if there's a person working in customer service or shipping or someplace like that, I always want to make sure that I'm feeling no more important than them. I have a different role. I talk, you know, I make decisions, I do business. But is it more important than having the product ship well? You know, is it more important than the customer service that someone gets when they call Heartmath? I don't think it is. I just think there's different roles, different skill sets. And so I always try to create an equality feeling in me that I hope the employees get.
And how do you do this? Or at a certain point in time it becomes natural.
Yeah.
But how do you start creating that feeling of equality?
Well, I think for starters, I have to always try to not take myself too seriously, you know, and not try to see what I do as a big deal, you know, not try to add all that extra significance to what I do and who I am and all that. That's the beginning point. And then it's looking for the qualities in others. And if you look through the eyes of the heart, then you start to see some really cool qualities in people, you know. You start to see, well, they really do that interestingly. And then for me, sometimes it gets into, I don't think I could do that, you know. I don't think I would have handled that customer the same way,
Yeah.
you know, kind of a thing. That was really interesting how you handled that. And then I go, if I was in their shoes, you know, I don't know that I would have done that, you know. And so you start to pick up on these things. And as you do, the appreciation is real. It isn't just, you know, I'm going to appreciate because I should. Then you really do appreciate them. And it sort of levels things out a little bit. I'm not taking myself so seriously, and I'm seeing the good qualities in others, and so that balances it out. At the end of the day, you know, it's the way it is. At Heartmath, we have our lunches provided, so there's lunches available to all the employees. Not everybody always eats there or eats the lunch. They study the menu, you know, all that, but it's there. And what I like about that is when I eat lunch with anybody. So I'm eating lunch with any of the employees that are there. I'm sitting at the same table with them, you know, and I try to make that totally comfortable for them so that they don't feel like they got to be any different at lunch because I'm there, you know what I mean? So I just talk about normal things, about their families, about their children, about what movies they saw that they liked, you know, did they see this last TV show episode of it, what did they think, you know what I mean? And so I'm just having normal conversation with them so that they feel comfortable around me.
Yeah.
So stuff like that, and the culture builds over time. You know, if you start putting those things at the forefront of what you do, eventually the culture sort of molds itself around those principles and values. So I think Heartmath has a strong culture. Everybody knows there's a certain way in which you should be doing business there. If someone doesn't resonate with that, generally they don't stay. You know, I find that people will spin out on their own, you know, where they just
you don't need to push them.
don't need to push them, right? They'll end up, you know, moving on themselves. They'll come to that conclusion, you know, because the culture is strong enough that it is that way. And, you know, it isn't that we have a perfect culture. It isn't that there isn't conflict. That's all part of life. But I think what people get is that, you know, when there is conflict, we have ways of resolving it. You know, in our executive management meetings, we don't always agree, right? And there can be histories built up about that, you know. And so I think a good one is to at least approach every situation from a more neutral perspective. I don't have to go to that meeting going, I know how this is going to go. You know, I know what they're going to say, you know, all that stuff, you know. Just go in there and say this meeting can be whatever it is, right? And be more neutral going in. And making sure that I'm in sync with me in that meeting, that I'm preparing for that meeting on the inside, not just from the paperwork or the PowerPoint, but, you know, on the inside of myself.
And then you take a silence moment for yourself.
Yeah.
What do you do?
I focus on the heart, like in this area, and I breathe through this area, like pretending as if the breath is flowing in and out through there. And I do that in a comfortable way, eyes open or eyes closed. And I do it, and then try to activate one of those regenerative, uplifting emotions. Maybe it is something like appreciation. Like, well, appreciate what's my day like today? You know, what are some of the good things that are happening to me in my life? And feel that feeling, not just think it, but feel it. And it doesn't take but a minute, you know, to do that. And I can do that walking from my office to the meeting room. You know, and just making sure that I'm actually doing that. I'm not just getting caught up in the speed of the day and I'm running from the phone call to the meeting, and, you know, and I'm not really in sync with myself. Some days I'm better at that than others, you know, but the intention and the goal is to find those pause moments, to check in with me and see what am I really feeling and where am I right now? Is the day running me or am I running the day?
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And making that self-observation and then adjusting on the move doesn't mean I won't say the wrong thing, doesn't mean I won't irritate someone, but the chances of it happening are less.
What do you think a more heart-connected world looks like?
Oh gosh, it's hard to say, but it's to be amazing. If you think about a world that has more cooperation and less competition, and you see that happening some in business now. I mean, there's terms for that, co-opetition, you know, where you're allowing for the competition, but you're trying to cooperate through it, you know. I think a more heart-connected world will result in business, for example, that is not just based only on what you can get, but also on what you can give. So the desire to make it right for others, to make it a proper business deal, not to negotiate from a position of what what our company is going to get, and not care about whether it's a good deal for them or not. I think that stuff will start to emerge more, and then everybody comes out really. A heart-connected world, societally, will be even much more dramatically different. Less conflict, less discord between countries and between people. Certainly more acceptance, would be a result of a heart-connected world. I think that'll filter down into the quality of life for people. I think that is one of the keys to improving health. I mean, when I ask cardiologists, what's the cause of heart disease? The answer I expect would be people don't exercise enough, or people don't eat right. And sometimes they say that, but most of the time they say stress. That's what's causing the heart disease, So if you had a heart-connected world, you'd have less stress. Less stress can lead to better health, so you'd see a healthier world. And I think the desire to try to find solutions to problems would increase, and that increase would lead to finding the solutions. How do we make life better for the world, not just for certain parts of the world? Difficult to understand. It seems like there is no solution to that, but there's often solutions that we just don't see, and it takes time to see them. An analogy I use sometimes is I asked myself a question one day. I said, what is the most important discovery in the last 200-300 years? And I realized it was electricity. You could say, well, it's the car, it's the internet, it's this, but none of that stuff would exist if they hadn't figured out electricity.
Yeah.
Well, electricity was around since humankind was here. It was already there. It was right around everybody, but nobody saw it, right? Once they saw it, harnessing electricity revolutionized the way everything worked, the way we live, And so the analogy for me is that what else is there to solve problems or to change things that we're not seeing yet? So that allows me to be very hopeful that there are solutions. How are we going to feed all the people? I don't know. How are we going to clean up the planet with the ecological situations? I don't know, but somebody will figure that out, and somebody will get that. And I think it will come from them accessing more of their heart's intelligence. And that's going to be a result of living in a world that promotes that.
Do you see it changing throughout the decades, how willing people are to live from their hearts?
I do. We tend to focus on the problems that we see in the world, and they're on full display through the media and all we have today. Yeah. You can see so much, right? You see all these problems. At the same time, I also see a much larger movement happening where people are changing values. They're changing what they want. They're changing what they believe in. They are changing how they treat each other. I see this happening all over the planet. You mentioned earlier, I've been doing this for 25 years. I get around, in the world. And everywhere I go, I see these magnificent people doing really interesting, wonderful things, right? So I started adding all that up and going, the larger percentage of people is moving on, and you have a big chunk that's not, and you have this separation, this divide that's happening. But I see actually the stronger movement going this way. Now, from a business visual analogy that I use sometimes would be like a trend graph. Trend graph has a line through here, and you see other lines going up and down above it and below it. Yeah. And so let's say it's sales. We'll say this quarter was here, this quarter was here, this quarter was here, this quarter here. But then they're looking at, is the trend going this way or is it going this way, right? So the trend graph is averaging it all out and then showing where the line is moving. When I look at society, I see the trend graph moving in the right direction, even though there's horrific stuff going on. Yeah. And the news will show that to us every day, And so it looks like crisis happening everywhere. I don't ignore that. I recognize that it is true, it's real. And I do have compassion for the people that are most directly affected. But when I step back from the wider angle view, I see the trend graph going this way. There's just too many good people trying to do the right thing for me not to see it another way. So I think we're okay. I think we're headed in a good direction. We've got challenges we're going to face in business, challenges we're going to face in society, challenges we're going to have in our own lives. But I think that the creation of a new and better world, which we can call a heart-connected world, is inevitable. It's going to happen whether we like it or not.
I agree.
I think what we control is the timing, and the speed, and how easy or gentle a process that's going to be.
Yeah.
We have some control over that. The inevitability of the change is something that I believe in.
Yeah. And you want to be a catalyst in the transformation.
Yeah, why not? I mean, what's life about? At the end of the day, it's about what you gave, and not so much about what you took, right? And if you're going to live a meaningful life, I think it should be about always going through a process of continuous improvement for yourself, and then also completing that circuit by sharing, by giving something to others, giving back to others.
Are those two aspects for you of a meaningful life?
Like a compass. Years ago when I was very young, I had those realizations. I started to figure out that life was about evolution. It was about change, about growth. When I looked at nature, for example, I saw that nature was always changing, always evolving, always growing. Each generation of nature was adapting to the environment to make it better as it went, right? So I thought, well, that's the way we are. We're all trying to do the same thing. And then, as my heart's intelligence began to get a little stronger, I started having the other realizations about it had to be about more than me. Like growth for the sake of growth without some way to externalize it wasn't going to be fulfilling, right? And so I get smarter, I get more aware, I get all these things, So what if I'm not, connecting that with life itself? And so it became important. So today I step back and I look at these things. I look at, am I still growing and changing? Am I a better Howard Martin today than I was yesterday? What have I done lately to really make a sustainable difference in the lives of others? And that can be big things like giving the big talk and all that stuff, or it can be how kind I was to the service staff here.
Yeah.
I'm connecting with people in this hotel. We don't even speak the same language, but when I see them and they see me, there's always this little connection. So somehow I'm maybe helping lift their spirit a little bit, in life. And so I evaluate those kind of things, and there's a sort of an inner guidance compass that I've had for a really long time that helps me.
I was wondering, how do you deal with the media news feed in your life? At a certain point in time, I stopped following all the news in the media because it got my state in a lower frequency, and it didn't help me, and it didn't help the world either, because I can't do anything with it besides the thing I'm aiming for.
It's a really good question. There's two ways I've dealt with it. First of all, I've gone through what you just described, and I've decided not to watch it, and I've actually done what I call a media fast, like fasting for diet, not going to watch media for a week or 2 weeks, and just don't watch any of it. Don't make sure the CNN site does not come on. Don't watch the news, and that's helpful because it resets my system. However, it also can feel like avoidance. It feels like trying to run from something. Rather than create something within the context. So what I generally do, and I've been doing this week, is I'll read the headline, but I don't read the story. As I go into the story, I go into the drama of the story, and so I'll read the headline, and I will say, okay, I want to know what's going on. I want to know what's happening in the world, right?
So you're connected with reality in a way.
Exactly. But I don't have to buy into the entire story and all the opinions and all that. So the type of news I generally don't watch is when you have talking heads that are all debating some political thing or something, and I just, I don't need it, need all that, And in America, when we had our last presidential election, that was a big shock to society when we had, Donald Trump elected, and we knew there was going to be a whole lot of change, and not the kind of change that would be what I would want, right? But I had to go to non-judgment about that and say, okay, I'm not going to judge this man as being wrong or evil or any of that stuff. But I'm also not going to let him run my life for the next 4 years. I'm not going to cut the news on every morning to find out what he did, so I can complain to somebody about it, I'm just not going to do that. I'm just going to let it unfold, and it's in my heart's care to the highest, best outcome. But I'm not going to let that political situation be what dominates my consciousness.
Yeah.
So those little tips, hopefully people get something out of.
Yeah, thank you.
The simplest one is read the headline, don't read the story.
Yeah, right.
It'll save you a lot of energy.
Yeah.
Save you a lot of energy.
With Heartmath, have you ever researched if more coherent leaders are more successful with their companies?
Yes, especially in decision making. One of the things Coherence helps with is access to intuition. Intuition is a field of information that's not as logical and linear. It's sort of direct knowingness that we get. And we've done studies where leaders have shown that many of their decisions are finally based on intuition. That they gather facts, but the facts still won't quite make the decision.
Yeah.
So a term I've used for that is called informed intuition. You want the facts. I want the numbers. I want to see this deal. But at the end of the day, I have to decide, does it feel right? And I have to make these type of decisions all the time. So through that lens, I think coherence training allows us to make those type of discriminating decisions better. It doesn't mean they're all going to work out. Life is life, but the ratio is higher. So we've seen that. We've seen companies where people trained in Heartmath, the amount of patents that they were able to generate of new ideas increased dramatically.
Oh, really?
For example, oh yeah, the productivity goes up. More patentable stuff came out of that whole thing, right? We saw that in a major company. I won't mention names, but a huge multinational company was our first major corporate account. We actually won an award for the innovation that brought to that company, in terms of what they created, the new things that they created, big giant technology company, So we see that kind of result, and that's kind of interesting. You see it go from here to here, down to patents,
Yeah, nice. What do you like the most about what you are doing and what you're giving the world? When are you in the biggest flow?
Well, I certainly think that my own fulfillment increases as a result of doing it. So I am benefiting. It's not all just a selfless service thing. My life gets better, right? My enjoyment of life increases. I feel really fortunate that I'm as old as I am, but still have so much vitality.
How old are you?
69.
69? Oh, really?
And I feel like a little kid.
Yeah. You don't look 69.
I feel like I still have the fun spirit, right? And that's a gift. That's a serious gift. Most people have already called it quits by the time they're where I am, and I don't have any intention of that. And my health is supporting me in that, right? So that's a real gift for that. So that's a benefit. It's not answering your question directly. I think what I enjoy most about it at the end of the day is feeling like I did make a difference, and sometimes I get the direct feedback because I'm there in person, and people tell me that what they experienced was life-changing for them, and they explain that. Sometimes it comes back around many years later. I may run into someone that says, I was very young when I first met you. My mother took me to a seminar, and I've never forgotten what you told me, and it's helped me so much in my life. It was 10 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Someone who was 10 years old is now 20, telling me that that what happened 10 years ago was important for them and how their life is unfolded. And you go, wow, really? And so those kind of things, they sort of reinforce the feeling that you're doing the right thing. And I think that's what's most fulfilling to me about that. But that's all feedback stuff. I think the real feedback that's most fulfilling is sensing again that I continue to grow, and that life is still an adventure for me. And
what do you feel is your next step in your growth?
well, there's a lot of steps. It's always a refinement process around, sorting through the games that go on inside, of how much mission versus ambition there is. It's easy to talk about the mission and doing the mission, but there's also an assessment of the ambition in there. It's okay, but there's refinements that go on in there. Like, did I decide to do this and make this decision because it was really best for everybody, or did I do it because I was interested in how I was going to come out, right? So still continually sort through the games in there. What's most important to me in these times is something a little different. It's learning to live life through compassion and learning to refine what compassion is. Compassion isn't always just this, oh my gosh, the poor thing, they need my compassion. It's not fixing the broken wing on the bird. It's a higher level of it that allows you to have an understanding, but without being sucked into the drama of it. And leading a life through compassion opens the door for so many things. Judgment's a great example. We all have judgments. They always block us. They always slow things down. They don't create connection. They create separation. But I've learned that, rather than just saying, I don't want to judge anymore, I'm working on the judgments. If I work on compassion, the compassion takes care of the judgments. It erases out the judgments, right? Because you don't really feel them. You're feeling more of the understanding of this person who's different or doing something that, looks like the wrong behavior. Rather than going to judgment, you have a sense of compassion about that. And there's a lot more to that. The compassion it opens a wide-angle lens on life. And so some of my thoughts in these times are about how do I make that more and more just a standard way of living, rather than I'm here and I'm going to be compassionate. Here, but like I'm compassionate, and that's what operates it. It's the operating system. I don't know how that relates directly to business and leadership, but I do think that if it's opening the wide-angle lens on life, that it can't help but improve leadership. It can't help but make us better, more effective leaders. And at the end of the day, there's a bottom line to that whole thing. And I don't think compassion takes away from that at all. I think it adds to our ability to create, to achieve, and to provide inspired leadership. Some of the thoughts I've had about business are, I guess, maybe in some context a little radical. In some ways, I don't even believe in the concept of business as we see it today. And I think that's going to change and grow. I don't think business 50 years from now is going to look like business looks today. Business today is based upon, I have a product and a service, and I need to give it to you, and you need to give me more for it than I paid for it. So in a sense, it's like, I'm going to take more from you than I'm giving to you. It's this whole thing, and then you multiply that out, and then it gets into the competitions between the companies, and how one company wants to hurt another company so they can gain, or one wants to be bigger than the other, or dominate the other, or dominate the market. That's standard business. And it comes from, it's a dog-eat-dog world. This is the way things work, Howard. This is the way business goes. But I just don't feel like that's the future of business. I feel like business can be business, and that profitability can be put, at the forefront of what needs to be done. But I don't think it has to be because it's driven by taking away from something else. I also think in business, the way business is done today, there's a convincing that has to go on. You're trying to convince someone to take an action. That's where advertising comes in, and marketing and all that. And I've done a lot of that. And so you're trying to convince someone to get something. What if we were trying to get them to fall in love with their company first? Fall in love with what it is and what it stands for and the values that it has. If they ever do that, then they're going to want to give you that money. Yeah. It has to be genuine. There's a trend in business called, purpose-driven marketing, which is where companies begin to put their purpose at the forefront of what they do. So they market their purpose more than they do their products. Well, it's been successful for some companies, and so other companies have gotten onto it. But then what I sometimes see is it looks like that's still a manipulation. That's not really where they're coming from. That's the image that they're trying to portray so that they get the business. Where the ones that have been successful at it, it's authentic. There's a story that I read about the apparel company, Patagonia, which makes outer apparel, jackets and stuff.
I know it, yeah.
And they have this whole purpose of ecological sustainability and all this stuff, and their founder and all that talks about that all the time. And back a few years, they came out with an advertising campaign that said, "Don't buy this jacket." And it went on to say that if you need a jacket, we have some good ones. But if you really don't need a jacket, don't buy it, because it takes a lot away from the natural resources of the planet. So we'd rather you not buy the jacket because it's going to hurt the planet. Yeah. If you need one, buy it. If you don't, just don't buy it. But, all that. Well, I think that was real. I think that they were putting their purpose out to the world. What that does, however, is probably generate a lot of business. because people who identify with planetary sustainability goes, I'd rather buy the Patagonia jacket, right? So it ends up being a great marketing play, but I don't think they only did it for that reason. I think they took a courageous step at saying we're going to put this out first in the forefront of what we do. We'll take what we get for that. But I do think it was smart business at the same time. In today's marketplace, there's so many, with many products, there's so many places you can buy it, you know, so many different brands you can choose from, you know, and I think more and more people study sort of the feeling of a brand. A brand is not just a logo, it's an energy. You know, when you see the Nike swoosh, there's a unconscious and conscious feeling from that one symbol. It's an energy to Nike bigger than Nike, you know, that goes out into the world. And different brands evoke different responses. And so I think more and more people are looking for doing business with brands they resonate with. So companies have to get clear about what that is. So I think we look at the feeling of the company. Right now I've been into bicycles, you know, and so I read about these different bikes, and the bikes are often have the same type of components, and they're in the same price range, you know. But you know, you're looking at the drivetrain and the braking system and the suspension and all that other stuff, and you read and like, okay, what's the difference between this company and this company and this company and all that? So what I'll often do is I'll go in and Google the company, and then I'll read about the company and the company history and all that, and I started getting a feeling of that company. And so I'll end up buying something, that product which seems to be equal, you know, on paper, I'll probably buy it from the company that I resonate most with. So it's another reason to put heart into what companies do. You want to really put your purpose out there. But all those things I think will change business. And I think that this whole notion of competition will go through a major metamorphosis in your lifetime. I think, you know, down the road business will be very different. Now I don't want that to feel threatening to any leaders, it is, you know, but I think we've fallen into the trap over the last, say, 15 years or so, to where what's most important is the quarterly profit sheet, you know, driven by the stock exchange, and feeling as if we don't have the right stock exchange numbers and the right valuation and all that, we'll lose our jobs, you know, and that threat has to go away. It can't just be about the quarterly profits. And I do think companies will reach a point as well to where enough is enough. I mean, why does a company always have to see an increase in sales? When is there enough sales that the company is highly successful in providing the products and services that they want, and having the employees taken care of like they want to? Why do they need more? Why do they have to hurt something or somebody to get more? And I think those thoughts will start to change. It doesn't have to be that way. When's big enough? I don't know. But I think it's an interesting question for us to ask as leaders, is when is big enough? I was talking to some of my partners here in Europe yesterday and talking about, you know, always wanting to see growth, not bad, but our growth should be based upon whether it's providing more happiness and fulfillment or not. If the growing becomes too stressful, then it's probably not worth it. If it's taking away from the quality of our life, is it worth it? If it's growing because it feels right and because we're getting more enjoyment out of the growth, then that's a really good thing. But I don't want it to only be about growth at any cost. You know, there should be some measurement of the cost of growth, you know, built into the business models.
If you could give one advice to leaders and entrepreneurs, what would it be?
Well, simply said, you know, learn to listen to and follow your heart. Don't see it as inappropriate in business. It's not. Learn to trust it, because it'll never let you down. It'll always lead to the right situation and the right decision if you really go that way. You'll have to experiment with that to prove it to yourself. Don't take it just from me. But to me, when you open your heart that way and begin to really manifest those qualities, it may look like it's out of context for business, but it isn't. You know, it's the next level of business. So just learn to listen to and follow your heart. Trust it. Tune into it. Listen to what it has to say, and then act on that. And over time, If your experience has been like mine, you'll see that that leads to nothing but more productivity, nothing but more success in business and in life.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.